Hey guys, I'm live. So, welcome to Own Your Story, the fourth episode. So, this week I'm going to talk about my book as usual, The Art of Owning Your Story. I'm going to talk about chapter 7, Live Life Like a Story, and chapter 8, To Be Afraid is to Be Alive. So basically, chapter 7 is all about adventures and living your life like a story, and chapter 8 is about fear and how to overcome fear. So for chapter 7, I name it Live Life Like a Story because I get this idea from a book called A Million Miles in a Thousand Years, written by Donald Miller, because he says that living life like a story is basically making your life a story, and a story is essentially someone, a character, overcoming challenges to achieve a goal. So when my life was kind of stalled and I got bored doing what I do, I think about the challenges and I asked myself, was I achieving a goal? And for me, when life started to become, flat and plateau, what I usually do is I look for adventures and I go for traveling, backpacking, solo traveling. And I learned a lot from all my adventures, whether it's solo or with somebody else. Because when I was in a new environment, especially on my backpacking trips, when all my belongings is packed into a backpack, it was in that moment when I realized that I need very, very little to feel contented about life. So the biggest lesson I learned about traveling is like living with minimal needs is actually a life skills. And also when I travel, especially when I solo travel to say Vietnam, Thailand, I have like damn awesome parents who give me the freedom to explore this. So when I travel, like I also discover and I observe, I see that there's so many ways of doing life, of living life, because I've met travelers who travel for 1 year or half a year just on a backpack. And to them, life is just like going from places to places, experiencing everything. And I also see like in a lot of places, life is so simple. It's so simple for people to just smile and just be contented with their everyday life. And so, yeah, traveling to places, especially in Southeast Asia, where I love, it let me see a lot of possibilities and the simplicity in life. And the third thing about traveling is I learned about people. Because before I went on traveling, a lot of people, like my mom, my friends, will tell me that, hey, you're a girl, you're not supposed to travel alone. And what I learned is that I found my truth that people are actually very nice. And when you're on the road, most people have good intention. And I also believe that the energy you carry will bring you through, like will keep you safe and all that. It means like, of course, we have to be street smart, but when we open our heart and we embrace people along the journey, we will find that like people are actually very nice. And especially when you're alone as a girl, we need a lot of helps and we need to ask for directions, ask for recommendations. And that was when I realized that, hey, like people are really, really nice. And like a lot of our worries, like the stories we told ourselves were kind of unnecessary. Yeah, so that's what I learned from traveling, minimal needs, the possibilities, and the people. And I would also like to share with you guys like one of my most memorable adventures so far. It was the trekking in Annapurma Basecamp at Nepal in 2015. Because in that 6 days trek, it was in the first time I realized that life is so simple and life can be so simple. Because on the way up, it's like all my problems in life at that time, I was pondering of career change. I had so much doubt in myself, and on the ascent to the base camp, my only goal in life is just to make it to the base camp. Like my only life purpose is to reach the top. And along the way, whenever I feel tired, whenever I feel physically exhausted, and when I just turn and look around, like the surrounding was so beautiful, it was so surreal that I have no reason to complain about life at all. Yeah, and Caroline say that you're considering doing it and you should definitely do it, because for me it's a life-changing trip, and it just opened my mind about nature, about the power of mountains, being in a place where we are so small and the nature is so grand and so perfect. And yeah, so it was also during the hike I realized that something as simple as a bite of chocolate, something as simple as a bowl of hot noodles can bring so much joy in life. And what it does is really just bring us and bring me back to the very, very core of life, when we just wake up, walk towards the peak, work towards that together in a group, and just be in the moment. Yeah, just be in the present, be with the mountain, be with the people there, be in love with nature, be in love with life. So yeah, that was one of the most beautiful memory I've ever had in my life. And sometimes when we come back, we'll get lost in our daily life again, and that memory becomes an anchor that keeps me grounded whenever I feel like a mess. Yeah, and then we move to chapter 8. I call it "To be afraid is to be alive," and it's all about fear, because I feel like it's impossible to live without fear. It's impossible to be fearless, because fear will always be there, and it's just part of our human nature, and it's part of our evolution as well. Because fear is the thing that triggers the what do you call, fight or flight response. If we choose to fly, it means that it keep us safe, like in the past, in the ancient time, but in today's world where we are generally quite safe. So when we are faced with uncertainty, if we choose to fly, we might miss a lot of possibilities in life, a lot of things that we might be creating. And if we choose to fight, it doesn't mean that fear will go away. It just means that we are coexisting and co-creating with fear, and we become stronger than that. So along the way, ever since I started my own business in the cafe industry and then quitting it and going back to rock bottom and then starting a new career in content writing, fear has become like a big part of my life, and it has become a lifestyle. Like dealing with fear has become a lifestyle, because I realized that there are so many fears. It's like playing game where you constantly have to up-level yourself. You have to constantly overcoming different type of fear. So for example, some fear includes, and not just some, the biggest fear is not being good enough. And it was a very, very big and real fear that I went throughout the journey of writing and publishing my book. Because I always have these questions, is I wasn't even 28 yet, I was only 27, and I had 5 years of life experience as a millennial. What makes me qualified enough to write a book? But to me, it's the why is more important. The why of writing the book is even more important, and it's bigger than fear, because I feel like there are a lot of lessons I learned in my own journey, and it kind of like killed off a lot of bullshit I heard as well. Like people tell you to, climb up, to get a safe job, climb up the ladders, and then is that I learned something new. And there are a lot of things that I learned along the way by going against advice and following my heart. And it brought me where I am today. And I realized that I need to share my story so that people who are also on a journey of seeking has a different example, or they can see different possibilities of life, and hopefully they will take actions and create a life that they love, create a job that give them fulfillment, to like fulfill the potential you have in this life, because life is short and whatever we do is just enjoy, have fun. So focus on your why is always like the best remedy for fear. And also I find that when we tell our story, it's also the way, like owning the story and telling our story is a big way to overcome fear. Because when we tell our story, that's our biggest asset. When we are being ourselves, it's like there's nothing to be fear of, right? It's like, what can I be if not myself? And I also find that when I talk about my own story, or I create a service or a product that reflects my personality, it becomes so much more fun to sell it and then to market it and then to tell people about it. Yeah, because that was a lesson I learned recently as well in terms of writing. In the past, I had write a lot of boring things like company profile, and I just research and put things together, and I wasn't proud of what I do, and it just sucked away all of my passion for writing. And recently, when I recognized that I should write in my own way and I should bring my voice and my character and help my clients to find their unique character, it makes writing so much more fun. And it makes storytelling so much more compelling as well, because I'm not just telling my own story now. I'm helping more people to tell their own story. And that makes me that helps me to find the passion for writing and to write to build something in the long term. And then tell your story, focus on your why. And also fear, like the big thing about fear is when we take note of our fear and when we recognize fear, we will normally find or realize that it's always in our head. Because all our fear, when you really look at it, is not caused by anything in our environment, but it's because of the story we tell ourselves. So for example, the fear of not being good enough, I realized that there was nobody ever told me that I was a bad writer. Nobody ever told me that I shouldn't write a book. But I had so much fear because it's all in my head. It's that I was so scared of judgment. I was so scared of criticism. I was so scared of how people see me. And also I had a fear of like uncertainties, not knowing where I would go next, not knowing what I would create next, not knowing where do I get my next client, where do I get my next paycheck, worrying that I might be a failure in the family. So all these things is so unreal, as in like we can't see it, we can't touch it, we cannot get it from anywhere outside of us. It's all in our head. So that's the biggest thing about fear. It's in our head. And to overcome it, always, whenever you feel scared of doing things, always go back to your why. Why are you doing certain things? And what's the purpose? It's usually something bigger than ourselves. And it's usually something that we do for other people that drive us in our pursuit. So that's all I would like to share about living life like a story and fear with all of you. And I hope that it gives you guys some sort of like insight in dealing with your own fear and dealing with your own adventures. And I would like to end this with a quote from the book. It's from chapter 7, Live Life Like a Story. So I say that to create your life story is not about knowing enough about life, but to do enough in this life, to keep asking questions and to keep seeking for answers, because your curiosity will always drive you in your own journey. And whatever fear you have, always remember your why. It's like, why are you doing things? And keep it fun. So yeah, that's all for this time. And next week I'll go live again to talk about the next two chapters, which is chapter 9 and chapter 10. And that it is going to be interesting because it's all about love and relationship and family. So yeah, stay tuned for next week's guys. And if you have any comments, any questions, drop it in the comment box and I'll answer it next week. Bye guys.